Your tools are dying in the shed right now. That padlock seizing up, that hinge bleeding orange dust every time it rains. You've tried spray oil, you've tried paint, and 6 months later the rust is back worse. Blacksmith solved this before electricity reached most American towns. One flame, one rag, 20 minutes, and an old document sitting in a forge outside the hill country that most people will never see. The first time I drove out to a working forge in the hill country, I expected rust everywhere, old iron, open air, no climate control, decades of weather working against every surface in that shed. There wasn't a spot of it. Not on the tongs, not on the anvil face, not on tools that had been hanging on the same nails for what looked like decades. The smith running the place was a wiry man in his 60s, forearms scarred from 40 years of sparks, sun-worn in the way you only get from working outdoors your whole life, and he didn't own a single can of spray-on rust protectant. Not one. I checked the shelves out of curiosity and found oil, rags, and nothing else. I watched him finish a hook, heat it one more time after it was already shaped, and wipe it down with an oily rag while it was still hot enough to hiss on contact. He didn't explain what he was doing. He just did it. The way you'd wipe your hands after a meal, automatic, unthinking, passed down so many times it wasn't even a technique to him anymore, just a habit. I asked him about it afterward and he shrugged like I'd asked why he breathes. I didn't understand what I was looking at until I went home and started reading into old blacksmithing manuals, trying to figure out what I'd just watched. And once I understood it, I couldn't unsee how much money we've all been talked into spending year after year to avoid learning this one simple step. Knowledge like this keeps disappearing. Subscribe before it disappears from here too. Walk into any hardware store and the rust aisle is enormous. Spray coatings, converter gels, rust-proof paints, all promising a permanent fix, all lined up in bright packaging that looks more confident than the product actually performs. Most of these are surface treatments, plain and simple. They sit on top of the metal instead of bonding with it, which means the first scratch, the first hard freeze, the first humid summer, and moisture finds its way underneath the coating anyway, working from the inside out where you can't even see it happening. You end up rust-proofing the same tool 2 or 3 times a year, buying the same can over and over, watching the rust creep back in the exact same spots no matter how careful you are. The problem never actually goes away, it just gets rebranded as maintenance. And this isn't folklore. According to Wikipedia's own entry on steel bluing, ordinary red rust undergoes such a large volume change when it absorbs moisture that the oxide flakes off on its own, which is exactly why untreated steel keeps rusting away no matter how many times you coat it. But the smith's tools weren't sealed the way a spray can seals something. They were converted at the surface level into a different kind of steel entirely, not coated, changed. And that's the difference. Nobody selling you a spray can wants you thinking about too hard, because the moment you understand the difference, you stop needing their product altogether. That's not a coincidence. That's the entire business model. Bare steel rusts because raw iron reacts with oxygen and water to form iron oxide. That's the orange flaking you already know. Bluing works differently, and it works at the surface of the metal itself rather than on top of it. You heat the steel until it just starts to change color, and you seal it immediately with oil the moment that shift happens. That heat forces a different stable oxide to form on the surface, a tight black or blue-black layer. Guns magazine confirms this directly. Rust bluing is a passivation process that improves corrosion protection through an electrochemical conversion that changes the metal surface into magnetite, the black oxide of iron, a fundamentally different, more stable compound than the red rust everyone's used to fighting. It's still iron oxide technically, but it's a dense, non-porous version that doesn't crumble and doesn't invite more rust the way the orange kind does. The oil finishes the job by soaking into that layer while it's hot and still open, sealing out air and water at a molecular level instead of just sitting on top the way paint or spray coating does. This is the same principle gunsmiths have used on steel barrels for well over a century, because a firearm that rusts is a firearm that fails when it matters most. It doesn't wear off in a season, it doesn't need reapplication every few months like everything sold in that hardware store aisle, and it doesn't take a single specialized tool you don't already own. Just heat, oil, and steel. Here's why nobody told you. The rust prevention aisle isn't selling you a solution, it's selling you a subscription dressed up to look like a one-time purchase. A $9 can of spray coating that needs replacing 3 times a year earns more over a decade than a single afternoon spent learning a technique that costs almost nothing and works permanently. Hardware retailers stock the fast fix because the fast fix sells again next season, and the season after that, and every season for as long as you own the tool. The permanent fix sells exactly once, and then it stops making anyone money, which is precisely why it isn't printed on the label of anything you'll find on that shelf. Nobody's hiding a folder somewhere labeled "Don't tell customers." It's simpler and more uncomfortable than that. It's just that an entire industry has been quietly built around your not knowing this, one convenient purchase at a time, and nobody along the way had a reason to stop it. It's not a conspiracy, it's worse than that. A conspiracy you can fight, you can expose it, name it, take it to court. A system you cannot see is harder to fight because it just feels like the way things are. It feels like rust maintenance is simply a chore you're supposed to keep paying for forever, the same way your grandfather's generation was never supposed to question why the fix they were sold never actually fixed anything. You need three things, and you likely already own two of them. Plain steel, not stainless. This doesn't work the same way on stainless because of how the chromium content interacts with heat. A heat source, a kitchen stove burner, works fine for small tools, and a propane torch handles anything larger. And plain boiled linseed oil, or even standard motor oil, sitting in a small heat-proof bowl or worked into an old rag. Clean the metal first. No rust, no paint, no grease, just bare steel. Steel wool works fine for this and takes only a few minutes. Heat the piece slowly and evenly until you see the surface start to shift color, moving from straw to brown and finally toward a deep blue-black. The moment that blue-black appears, pull it off the heat and immediately wipe it down with the oiled rag, or dip it straight into the oil if the piece is small enough to submerge. You'll hear a hiss. The instant oil meets hot metal. That's the oil sealing into the surface exactly the way it's supposed to. Let it cool naturally on its own, then wipe away the excess oil. Total cost is close to nothing if you already have oil in the kitchen. Total time is under 20 minutes for most hand tools. By the end of week 1, you'll notice the treated surface has a dull matte black-blue sheen. By week 3, even after a wet stretch outside, there's no orange bloom starting at the edges the way untreated steel would already be showing by now. This technique didn't vanish because it stopped working. It vanished because it stopped being sold, and somewhere along the way, being sellable became the same thing as being remembered. A single afternoon of bluing outlasts a decade of spray cans, and nobody profits from teaching you a fix you'll only ever need to do once in the life of a tool. So it quietly dropped out of hardware store advice, out of home improvement shows, out of the instructions that came folded inside the box with every new tool you bought, replaced piece by piece, generation by generation, with something that has to be bought again and again. It didn't happen all at once. It happened the way most forgotten knowledge disappears. A father who used to know it got busy. A son who might have learned it bought the spray can instead because it was faster. And by the third generation, nobody even remembered there was ever another way to do it. Nobody made an announcement. Nobody decided to bury it. It just stopped being profitable to teach. And anything that stops being profitable to teach eventually stops being taught, no matter how well it works. That's the quiet part of this whole story. It's not that someone hid this from you on purpose. It's that an entire economy grew up around your forgetting it. And forgetting doesn't require a conspiracy. It only requires nobody having a reason to remind you. You might be thinking this only works on forge-grade tools, purpose-built steel from a real blacksmith shop, not the ordinary hardware store steel sitting in your shed. It doesn't matter where the steel came from. Plain carbon steel blues the same way, whether it's a $100 blade or a $2 hinge, picked up at a big box store, because the chemistry doesn't care about the price tag or the brand stamped on it. You might be thinking your tools are already rusted, so it's too late for this to help them. It isn't. Clean the rust off down to bare metal first, using steel wool or a wire brush, and the bluing process works exactly the same on old pitted steel as it does on brand new steel, as long as you're starting from a clean surface. And if someone tells you this is just old folklore that doesn't hold up to real chemistry, it is the real chemistry. Magnetite formation under controlled heat is the same mechanism industrial bluing plants use today on firearms and precision tools, just done by hand instead of by machine, with a torch instead of an industrial furnace. The process hasn't changed, only who's doing it has. If you're still not sure any of this is worth your time, here's the one thing I'd ask you to try first. Pick the cheapest, most disposable hinge in your shed, the one you wouldn't mind ruining, and glue that one first. 20 minutes and a rag is a small enough bet to prove it to yourself before you touch anything you actually care about. You didn't lose this knowledge by accident. It was priced out of you, one convenient spray can at a time, one easier product at a time, one generation that was just a little too busy to pass it down, until an afternoon of real skill quietly turned into a permanent shopping list that never actually solves the problem it promises to solve. There's a group of people, a lot of them our age, scattered across small towns and old properties, who have decided they are done being sold solutions to problems that shouldn't exist in the first place. People who would rather spend 20 minutes learning something once than $20 a year buying the same failure on repeat. If you're watching this, you're probably already one of them, whether you knew it yet or not. Tell me in the comments, what's the one tool in your shed you've been fighting rust on for years? The one you've already written off that you're finally going to try this on this weekend. I read every one of these and I want to know which tool gets saved. There's more of this forgotten wisdom still buried in old records, old kitchens, and old barns waiting on the people willing to go dig it back up. If that's the kind of thing you want more of, subscribe and I'll keep bringing it back one piece at a time. You didn't need a new product. You needed the old answer back. Now you have it.